Now watch this, everyone. I'm going to expose his inconsistency. Him and his little group of people, they always talk about the so-called inconsistency of the Muslims. But now let us expose the inconsistency of Nakdemon. Now he wanted to base his argument off of, you know, what the Tafsir was saying, right? Yet it's interesting that he ignores this part of the Tafsir after closing out verses 75, 76, and 77, when it gets to the explanation of verse 77, which says, "Say, O people of the book, exaggerate not in the matter of your religion unjustly." The Tafsir of Ibn Kathir says that this meant, do not exceed the limits concerning the truth and exaggeration in praising whom you are commanded to honor. You exaggerated in his case, meaning in Jesus' case, elevating him from the rank of a prophet to the rank of a god. You did this with Isa, Jesus, who was a prophet, yet you claim that he is a god besides Allah, meaning a god other than Allah. This error occurred because you followed your teachers and advocates of misguidance who came before your time. So it's interesting that he leaves that part out. Notice it finishes off by explaining nothing about Mary. Nothing about Mary being a member of the Trinity or being God. In fact, it finishes off by saying that the exaggeration that is spoken of from verse 75, 76, and 77 is that they made Jesus more than what he was. Had nothing to do with Mary. So you failed, Nakdemon.
No, Shadid, I'm not ignoring anything. You are. I have no problem with Ibn Kathir's reading of verse 77. But I also accept Ibn Kathir's reading of 73 through 75, where he includes Mary in the Trinity. You are being inconsistent because you now run to Ibn Kathir to quoting about 77 to support your claim, but then turn around and feed Ibn Kathir to the Puranas when it comes to his explanation about the Trinity, including Mary in the previous verses. Again, you just cannot call it like it is, can you, Shadid? And whoever took Mary and Jesus as two gods, yet excluding the Father? Can you tell me that? Since according to you, Muslims, Allah is supposed to correspond with the Father in Christian theology, right? So which sect ever in the history of mankind took Jesus and Mary as two gods? Note what the text says. Two gods, not apart from each other, two gods, and excluded the Father as their God. They never existed. Again, Allah is still wrong, no matter how you slice it, buddy. So far, you have failed to show us the following. You claim that I have to have explicit mention of the Trinity in order to say that verse 75 is about the Trinity, denying my contextually sound reading of 73 through 75. But you don't hold yourself to that same standard to support your own reading. Instead, you imply what the text says, not allowing me to imply what the text says, but demanding from me an explicit statement in the text when you yourself can point to an explicit statement in the text to support your own reading. Second, you haven't accounted for why Mary is mentioned in verse 75, a section that from 72 to 76 is about associating creatures with Allah, and therefore can only be about including Mary as a deity in a Trinity. Third, you haven't accounted for the reason why you think that verse 75 speaks only of the divinity of Yeshua, but not about Mary also, since the verse says that they both used to eat their food and therefore cannot be divine, something you have inadvertently ended up confirming after accusing me numerous times of reading that into the text. Fourth, you haven't even touched upon the fact that Allah claims to be the third of three, which is incorrect, since if Allah corresponds with the Father in the Bible, he wouldn't be the third of three, but the first of three. All you have tried to do is brush aside that argument, claiming that there is no fixed order in the Godhead, which is totally wrong. There is a fixed order in the Godhead. Therefore, your argument is moot. Fifth, you have claimed that Allah is the only explainer of the Quran, and therefore you wanted the Quran to explain the Quran. But why does the Quran fail to explain almost anything under the sun. With that argument, you ran to 5 verse 116, where according to you, Allah says that Christians take Yeshua and Mary as two gods without acknowledging the Father. Name us one sect within Christianity in all of history that took Yeshua as God, Mary as God, but excluding the Father as God, and said that the Father is not God. If you can't, then Allah is still wrong. The Quran claims to be clear, but it's not. The Quran claims to explain itself, which it doesn't. The Quran claims to rebuke Christians, but it doesn't even get the belief of the Christians right. You claimed that 5 verse 116 has nothing to do with the Trinity because of the words min duni, which according to you means without or excluding. But earlier you said that verse 73 through 77 are about the same people. You said,
can't you see the context that's being used here? The they in verse 73 is talking about the disbelievers. Verse 75 uses they twice. One, they, meaning they used to eat food, is referring to Jesus and his mother. And then it says, see how we make the messages clear to them. Who's them, my friend? Them is the people who disbelieve in verse 73. The they who, when it says, see how we make the messages clear to them, it's not clear to Jesus and his mother. It's clear to them who disbelieve, going back to the context of verse 73. So, behold how they are turned away. Who's turned away? Jesus and his mother? No. The disbelievers are turned away, not Jesus and his mother. Come on, man, this guy. Wow, I can't believe you made that mistake. I can't believe how you made this mistake. Look, even the next verse shows you. Even the next verse shows you that when it says, see how they are turned away, it's talking about the disbelievers. Verse 76 says, say, do you serve besides Allah that which controls for you neither harm nor good? And Allah, he is the hearing, the knowing. Say, O people of the book. You see, the whole context is talking to the people of the book, Nak Demon. So if you go from verse 73 down to verse 77, the entire context is referring to the people of the book.
Right. The whole context of verse 73 to 77 is about people of the book. Verse 73 says Allah can't be part of the Trinity. Verse 74 expands on 73. Verse 75 expands on 74. Verse 76 expands on 75. Per your own admission. Since it's about the same people in the same context, then it must be about the same subject. Because nowhere does it show a shift in subject. And what do we find in verse 76? Say, do you serve besides min duni Allah that which does not control for you any harm or any profit? Here Allah uses the same word, min duni, as in verse 116. Yet he uses it in reference to the Trinity in verse 73, according to your own initial reading. But now you want to renege on your previous statement to set the record straight. These verses show that min duni can also be understood as alongside Allah, and not just apart from or excluding Allah. Min duni is also used to refer to partners of Allah elsewhere. In Surah 10 verse 66, we read the following: no doubt, verily, to Allah belongs whosoever is in the heaven and whosoever is in the earth, and those who worship and invoke others besides min duni Allah. In fact, they follow not the partners, they follow only conjecture, and they only invent lies. How can Allah be excluded, as according to you is the strict meaning of min duni, from invocation of these partners, and yet be associated with them at the same time? This shows that besides can also mean in addition to. Thus your point about 5 verse 116 is a farce. And why isn't there a reference to the Spirit? Isn't it shirk too to worship the Spirit of Allah? Why isn't there a single reference to the Spirit, but only to Mary whenever there is a 3 or three persons are discussed. I'll tell you why. The author of the Quran didn't know. So much for your nonsense that the best explainer of the Quran is the Quran. The Quran explains nothing. Shadid, you made a 20-minute corny video with Mortal Kombat graphics, rambling about nothing, addressing nothing, refuting nothing, and then end up confirming my reading. So my argument remains. Verse 73 through 75 of Surah Al-Ma'idah says that Allah cannot be part of a Trinity because Yeshua and Maryam are just ordinary humans, since they both used to eat their food. Thanks for the astonishing yet unavoidable admission, Shadid Lewis, of my reading of Surah 5, verse 73 through 75. And that's all she wrote, folks. Allah is, was, and will remain wrong until the day of judgment, when he included Mary as part of the Trinity in Surah 5, verse 73 through 75 by Shadid's own inadvertent admission.
That's all, folks.